Good afternoon, Austin City Limits Radio. Andy Langer here. He is Adam Duritz. Welcome.
Hey, Andy. How you doing?
So when we arranged this a couple weeks ago, the email came and said, he's vaccinated. You're vaccinated. We could do this in person. Like, that's kind of crazy. You're the first person in, 16 months that I've sat across from and done this. You're getting back into it, but does it feel weird? It feels weird for me.
Well, I actually forgot about it until you said that just now. But the funny thing is I haven't done any interviews. I've done everything on Zoom.
Right, and that's how we've been doing it. Yeah,
for weeks now. I've been, at my house. We've got a little setup in the living room where we record stuff for the festival. And we've just been filming Zooms there. I did the Kimmel Show, the Today Show, all filmed at my house. But, I came down here to talk to Joe Rogan and to see you. But other than this, no, I haven't done any. But when we walked in, I was like, oh, yeah, I'm in a radio station. We're getting ready to talk on the radio like I've done a gazillion other times in my life.
Right.
And it seemed perfectly natural. And then you reminded me, I'm like, oh, yeah, no, I haven't done this at all. Last Sunday, I went out to dinner with my girlfriend and one of my best friends and his family. And that was the first time I'd been in a restaurant in, about the same, because we were recording in February and March, so I didn't go out to any restaurants. So probably since early March of last year is the last time I went out to a restaurant until Sunday. So, yeah, it's really weird, but I wasn't thinking about it. I got right into it like, oh, yeah, I'm in a radio station chatting like I've done a gazillion times.
Did you spend some time as a child in Texas? I don't think I ever – I know I didn't know that until today.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
I
so
did.
When was it and how long and whatnot?
My dad was stationed in El Paso at Fort Bliss. So we were there – 70 through 72 or 3, and then we were in Houston after that for a year or two. So like the first half of the 70s, really. And I think we moved from Texas to Oakland in 74, 75, something like that.
Is there a piece of that Texas aesthetic that imprinted on you at that young age that you think carries through?
Oh, yeah, because to me, Texas, that when you're a kid, you sort of, for the first few years, you just do stuff with your family, but then at some point you kind of go wander off on your own or with other kids, with no supervision, which is El Paso, Texas for me. Like vacant lots, snakes, spiders, that whole thing. When my dad was in the Army, we were like, unsupervised time. And it was like, that's my first sort of wander out of the house of myself period. So that's been a big part of it. And also if I'm drunk or it's really late at night or I'm around anyone from the South, I start to twang. It just happens a little bit, and then it fades away again. But I haven't done that in about a year now. It hasn't happened because it's just been me and my girlfriend at home. No one from the South around. So
I think all these years you're so closely associated with a place and a sound that's similar to that place that none of us, or at least me, had ever thought, oh, he's a Texan.
Well, it's weird. It's a place I haven't lived in for a long time either. We were really associated with the Bay Area. I moved to L.A. in January of 95, and I moved to New York in 2000. I've been in New York for 18 years. I've been a long way from – in my mind, I'm very associated with those places, but wherever I am. So, the Bay Area clearly been an important place for me, Oakland and Berkeley. Certainly Hollywood was for a little while, but I've been in New York for so long. But yeah, I land right in Texas in my head. In my head, if you ask me where I'm from, I'll always say kind of Texas and Oakland, just because it's just a period where it was important.
We're with Adam Duritz of the Counting Crows. Let's talk about your head for a moment. You've been pretty open about mental illness and a dissociative disorder. One of the things that's always interested me about rock stars is this idea of alter ego that, for instance, Beyonce and Sasha Fierce, that if you can separate yourself from the guy on stage that's doing the things, then the guy on stage doing the things is bulletproof. And even if they don't like the guy on stage, you get bad reviews, your band's not taken seriously, etc. That's just that guy, and it's not you. I imagine for you, that's a jumbled concept.
Well, no.
Or is it an alter ego situation that you lived with all these years? I'm not sure I understand.
No, I really like the guy on stage. I've been trying to get rid of the other guy for a long time.
Okay.
I don't know. I don't struggle on stage. I struggle with the rest of the day. I don't have stage fright. I have everything else fright. But, it turned out I wasn't crazy at all. It was the hair, and I took it off, and it's gone, and I'm fine. No, but I don't know.
This is radio, and people can't see that.
Oh, yeah, I shaved my head. So
yeah.
But that was a while ago.
Yeah.
I don't know. I never really thought of it as two separate things. To me, when I wrote my first song, it was like a bell going off in my head. Oh, I'm a songwriter. I've been wondering who I was my whole life. And then I figured it out right there. I didn't know how to do that for a long time. Like, I didn't know how I was going to live with doing that. It's not really the most obvious way to support yourself. But it did work for me. But yeah, to me, as soon as I wrote a first song, that made everything make sense. Like, I understood I had been unable to express things. I didn't have a way to be the me I'd always seen for most of my life. But as soon as I wrote a song, I'm like, oh, that's where all that's going to go. I felt like I had all this stuff inside me that was really cool and really special, and I didn't have any way to express it. Well, now I do. And everything's going to go right there from now on.
Yet you're not a prolific songwriter. There's 7 years between records here, and that's not an uncommon lapse for you and your band. Well, and I guess you'd roll in a year and a half of pandemic and whatnot.
Well, I've always been very, I don't want to say erratic, but I've never been, well, that's not true. When I first started writing songs, I wrote all the time for years. But as soon as we put out a record, that changed. But nothing because of the career or anything. It's just that I ended up in hotel rooms for the next 2 years, year and a half. And I don't play guitar, I play piano, so I can't be bringing a keyboard into my hotel every night. So, inevitably, I stopped writing for a few years. Also, it's a lot putting out records, the touring. You have to kind of forget it for a while before you want to do it again. Right. To me, I always, I really like writing, but as soon as I start writing, I want to record. I want to get in the studio. I'll write even more songs once we're in the studio, and then I got to put out a record. So if I start, I can't stop. So I think part of why this long break was I just, I didn't want to start right then for a while. But yeah, since I started putting out records, I've always sort of like written all in a burst and made the record, and then not written for 2 or 3 years. Because, it's most of it is just you can't. I'd be home for a few months and I would start writing again, and then we'd make another record. But that's why there's usually been exactly 3 years between albums for a while, because we always spent, a year and a half to 2 years on the road. Then you write some songs in a few months, you make a record, say that's 6 months together or something. And then it takes about 3 to 6 months to put them out. This one, obviously, longer. But so that's about 3 years. That's kind of what happened.
This could have been a longer break because everyone's returning to the road at once. And had you not, it would have been okay. And yet this is the time that it worked out that you've chosen to reemerge. And we've got a date, September 15th at the new Moody Amphitheater.
Well, that was all before the pandemic. I mean, we were 85 to 90% way done with the record.
Okay.
With
the EP, this EP?
On this record.
Right.
This record on about March 7th or something. We ran in and rehearsed a little bit in the end of February, and then plan was to go in and record for 2 weeks, and then take a little 2-week break and bring the other 2 guitar players in because we started without them. And then finish it up. So right when we were finishing up the first 2 weeks, we were watching the news and it was getting a little sketchy. And then we took that 2-week break and we had a pandemic land right on top of us. So we were sort of stuck for a while.
I've got a friend that believes that the way you train a dog is, there's the kennel, and initially the dog kicks and screams. Then it goes in the kennel, it sleeps in the kennel, it hangs out in the kennel, and then later on it goes to the kennel on its own because it decides it really likes that place. And that might be us coming out of the pandemic, that we've been kenneled up for a year and a half, but now that it's over or looking better, we might decide we liked it. We liked the way our lives changed to some degree.
Well, I think there's some to that.
Yeah, I mean, how do you think you're different now than you were before this?
Well,
can you already see some ways? I
wasn't alone, for one thing, which, I was, in a relationship that was really good and only got better from spending all this time together. I'm very lucky to be in a place in my life where I could take a year off like that. I'm sure it was much harder on other people. So we had a really good year and a half of quality time in a way. But I've also noticed a little bit of weird agoraphobia on my part. Like since that, like a few times recently, friends have come into town to play a show, and I've been really, really excited to see them and go, and then I just haven't. I noticed that. Like I said, I went to the restaurant for the first time this Sunday. I just hadn't been going out. And I'd go to the grocery store, buy stuff. But that's about it. Hadn't been going out to do anything. And I know there's some hesitancy there. I was really kind of weirded out about going on a plane. It had more to do with, I've been vaccinated for a little while now, and I've been at home, so I really haven't needed to wear a mask. So it was a little claustrophobic to be on a plane and in the airport. So
I thought the airport was worse than the plane because I went to Nashville recently, and the airport scared me more than the plane, even as a vaccinated person.
Well, it was a little bit of both to me because it just like I got a little claustrophobic after whatever it is, 6 hours with the mask on. That was starting to get me a little weird after a while. I don't know why. I hadn't had one on much because I hadn't been going out. When I went out, I put it on, but not for any not for all those hours, Right. But I think you should. I'm just trying to be careful. I'm vaccinated, but you want to be careful around people. And also, I don't want to make anyone else feel uncomfortable. So, but yeah, that was a little weird. I was nervous about that beforehand. But I don't know.
All right. Well, the
I'm
record.
Taller. That's it. I've changed. I'm taller.
Counting Crows on Austin City Limits Radio. Adam Duritz of the Counting Crows joining me in studio September 15th. You'll find them at the brand new Moody Amphitheater, which is at the newly reconfigured Waterloo Park. I saw somewhere that Sunflower, the Vietnamese place just down the road, is one of your favorite restaurants in America, and I'm here to tell you it didn't make it.
Yeah, I'd heard that.
Gone.
I'd heard. Yeah. That made me sad. I do
that
think
crepe was amazing.
It was. The crepe was out of this world. It was just like unlike anything. That's a really great restaurant, and it was very really fresh. Just you never felt heavy. It just was the food was so good there. It's a shame.
Generally, comedians and chefs want to be rock stars, and rock stars want to be comedians and chefs. You did a cooking show during the pandemic. Is there what's the discipline, or is it just discipline? What do those disciplines have in common?
Well, you're being creative, and you are feeding other people in a way, which I think music does emotionally and food does foodily. I've always cooked. I come from the Bay Area, which is very much my friend Joey, who lives in Austin now, he and I cooked together from when we were young. Instead of having just regular parties, my parents would go out of town. We'd have all our friends over, raid my dad's wine cellar, and cook 5-course meals. We would just get everyone wasted and make stuff. I got about a month into this pandemic, and I went to my girlfriend and I said, I'm really worried I'm going to wake up a year and a half from now and I won't have done anything. I don't want to do that. I'm going to learn to cook everything. I'm going to research, because I'd been doing a podcast and researching music all the time. I'm going to put all that I'm going to figure out how to cook all kinds of stuff. And I really put my mind to it and worked at it. And, there was no plan to put it up online or anything. I was just doing it for us. But then I started posting some of them on our stories on Instagram. And then I decided to kind of make it, I want to show people how some of the stuff isn't as hard as they're thinking it is. I can show them how to cook some really good stuff. I started doing that. I've just been doing it by myself. It was pretty rudimentary. I've started editing it a little more. I'm getting clever. I learned how to put captions on it just so I could make fun of myself while I'm doing it. But I don't know. It was just for fun. I have a lot of friends who are chefs. I admire other creative outlets. I think being a comedian is probably the hardest art form there is and the most terrifying. I don't want to be a comedian, but I do have nothing but respect for them. Chefs and comedians, that's some really, I love food. I love, me and two of my friends own a winery. I love creating stuff like that or taking credit for other people creating it. Either one's fine with me. In the case of the winery, I don't really do anything.
You don't live in San Francisco anymore. We established that, but you're familiar with the town and its trajectory, and you're a little bit familiar with this town. I mean, you've come and gone for South by Southwest for years. We now have a bunch of Californians living here.
Yeah, I heard that.
And you were just with Joe Rogan, who has brought a different element to town, and it feels like this culture war that's been brewing here for years between old Austin and new Austin and the people that made Austin what it is and then feel like they got left behind. Now they're together against these San Francisco folks that have moved here for tech jobs, and there's a lot of sort of cultural conflict. Can you take anything from the way San Francisco changed in your years there and seeing this town change, or is change just inevitable and we're just resistant to it?
In general, all towns change. Austin is kind of remarkable. I mean, I grew up in a college town in Berkeley, and I really have always loved college towns. Athens, Georgia. I mean, they rarely last as long or stay as cool as Austin has. I mean, they really have kept Austin weird over the years. I loved coming down here for, we put on our own festival during South by Southwest for years at the Outlaw Roadshow. And I always loved it. But it's always been a pretty wildly cosmopolitan town in that it had great food of different kinds, but its own kind of really gourmet. A lot of great quality food here in Austin a long time ago. Plus, you've got an incredible music scene that has managed to not die out, all of which is pretty impressive because something like South by Southwest, more than tech jobs, I would have expected the size and the success of something like South by Southwest to ruin Austin. But it didn't. I mean, I understand why for some people it did, but nothing, the universe is entropy. It's always moving towards something else, and nothing changes forever. I mean, what happened in San Francisco was different because it was a whole industry that appeared out of nowhere. And, it did mess some things up because when you're a musician, the dumpy areas of town are where you find rehearsal spaces. And when all those warehouses we all rehearsed in turned into, and this is after I left, they turned into condos because all these people came to move there. But that was different because it's like a gazillion dollars entered one town at the same time. And it's a little more gradual here. I know that I can't think of it as a bad thing for Austin that commerce and people's jobs are coming here because it'll be really good for Austin in a lot of ways. And it's not a business that, like a lot of businesses, should necessarily screw up Austin because it's a lot of people who are coming in who are, Austin's always been a very open-minded town. I've had people tell me it's almost like living in Texas. You can see it from here. I say that as someone who loves Texas, but, Austin's a little different from Texas, too. And it's always been a little different. I think it'll get a little bit more different with people coming to town. But I don't think what happened in San Francisco will happen here. I don't think it's that much. But I do think, it sounds like it will provide some jobs for people, which at a time, that can't be the worst thing right now because a lot of people lost work. A lot of, places went out of business. It's been a rough year and a half. Getting some jobs right now to a city like Austin could keep Austin closer to Austin than anything else. I think this is a beautiful place, and the kind of people who are coming here, actually I don't know who the hell's coming here, but it seems like it's the kind of crowd that might be, that would love a place like Austin. The people that are moving here, it's because, I'm just talking to Joe about it earlier today, he loves it. I mean, it's a great place. And, if you're going to have a great place, people are going to come because it's great. You know what I mean? And that's why people went to California, and it's why people are coming to Austin. It is a great place. You can't blame people for wanting to live here. It's a great place. It's affordable. Probably not as affordable as it once was. But, all it is like you can't want the world to turn backwards. I mean, this is a great, great town that is unique. A college town that is cosmopolitan and a state capital and has stayed artistic and fun and full of gourmet food all at the same time for a lot of years. Who the hell wouldn't want to live here?
You doing it?
No,
you
not
coming?
me. I live in New York. New York's a lot like a college town. It seems like a big city, but it's not like L.A. where everything's a million miles away or where you have to you live in a bubble, then you get in your bubble and drive to another bubble. New York, you walk out on the streets with everybody else. I don't even have a car. You take a subway everywhere. You're very much, and everything is a neighborhood. There is no distance between places. You can walk from literally one end of the island to the other. I like New York because it reminds me of the college town I grew up in more than L.A. did. It reminds me more of Berkeley and places like this. There's a lot of neighborhoods. You can walk, and you run into people. Because you share the subway and you share the streets with them, and it's my kind of place. But so is this. I do think this is a great town.
And I'm just going to leave it here. I imagine on the subways and when you walk out of your brownstone in New York, your life has changed because you cut the hair and there's fewer selfies every few steps.
It was never like that. It's
Really?
weird because in L.A. it was like that every step. But New Yorkers, there's just too many people on one small island to be messing with each other. Like, you have got to respect people's space in New York. The only thing that would happen is people come up to me on the subway and they'd be like, I like John Howard this morning. As far as it goes.
Right.
Love your band. And they walk off. No one asks for anything. It's too crowded. If everyone messed with each other all day, it'd be war. You couldn't do it. It's too many people. And so New York's always been easy that way. I kind of loved it from day one. I'm sure now I want everyone to know it's me. I got most of my shirts have signs that say, "No, I'm that guy." No, I swear. No, not that Adam. Yeah.
All right. The Counting Crows return to Austin September 15th at the Moody Amphitheater. The Butter Miracle Suite 1 EP is out now. Thank you.
Thank you.
And just towards the end there, I heard the twang for a second.
I know.
I heard it. Now that I know it's there, I heard it. So
it'll be gone tomorrow at home. It won't happen unless someone brings it up, and then it's just a weird schizophrenic. When I was born in Baltimore, that's a weird accent. We moved right to Boston. That's the most Yankee accent. And then I moved straight from there to Texas just to avoid getting my ass whooped. I learned it.
There you go.
So